हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय चैनल। आज हम करेंगे द फॉर्म ऑफ द पोएम। इसमें आज हम एक्चुअली ये MEG 1 है एंड ब्रिटिश पोइट्री एंड द मॉडर्निस्ट पोइट, ये ब्लॉक 9 है, द मॉडर्निस्ट पोइट। इसमें पहले हमने द फॉर्म ऑफ द पोएम पढ़ने से पहले हमने द वेस्टलैंड के थीम किए थे और उसके आर्ट के बारे में पढ़ा था। सो ये सब पार्ट है इसका। कॉम्पोजिशन और पब्लिकेशन भी हमने इसका कर लिया था। इस वीडियो में हम लोग द फॉर्म ऑफ द पोएम के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। Let us start now. The manner in which the manner in which the wasteland evolved in its composition raises relevant questions regarding the process of poetic creation and the form of poetry. For instance, should a long poem be a group of short poems or a unified whole? Also, what do we understand by poetic and artistic unity? It appears that Eliot himself was not quite sure about the unity of the wasteland, since he had initially wanted to divide it between two issues of the criterion. मतलब उनको इस wasteland को divide करना चाहते थे दो parts में. Though Eliot thought of it as a series of poems, Ezra Pound persuaded him that the poem should appear as a single sequence. Reading the 5 parts together is more effective in understanding what the poet says, and the poem is likely to lose its full meaning if its parts are taken up in isolation. अगर इसको हम लोग आइसोलेशन में पढ़ेंगे ना डिफरेंट पार्ट्स को, तो इसका फुल मीनिंग पता नहीं चलेगा. The unified pattern of the wasteland appears clearly only when we regard it as a single poem of several movements, comparable to those of a musical symphony or to a play of 5 acts. Eliot is of the view that a poet should work out different elements of a poem separately and then fuse them together to achieve the unity of an artistic whole. He disagrees with the words of E.A. Poe, जो कि अमेरिकन पोइट है, क्रिटिक है एंड शॉर्ट स्टोरी राइटर ऑफ द 19th सेंचुरी हैं. उन्होंने जो बोला था इससे एग्री नहीं करते थे T.S. एलियट. तो उन्होंने क्या बोला था? दैट अ लॉन्ग पोएम इज़ अ सीरीज ऑफ शॉर्ट पोएम्स स्ट्रंग टुगेदर. Poe finds it difficult to write a long poem because he believed it should possess one mood and be without variations of style. Eliot, on the other hand, writes a long poem only for the purpose of expressing a variety of moods. This requires the bringing together of a number of different moods and themes, which could either be related in themselves or in the mind of the poet. In the mind of the poet, who can visualize and combine together the diverse elements. Now, according to the third paragraph, according to Eliot, the parts of a poem taken together form a whole, which is more than the sum of the parts, and the pleasure that one gets from reading a part is enhanced by his grasp of the whole. This is what he means by the poetic unity of a work of literary art, be it a poem, play or novel. By these standards, मतलब वो बोलते हैं कि अगर जैसे कोई लंबी पोएम है ना, उसको भी लिखा जा सकता है, उसको भी अच्छे से समझा जा सकता है और पढ़ा जा सकता है. उसमें प्लेजर है. उसके कितने भी पार्ट्स होंगे, जब उन पार्ट्स को हम पढ़ेंगे ना इकट्ठे, क्योंकि कोई ना कोई पार्ट किसी ना किसी दूसरे पार्ट से जुड़ा रहता है. किसी ना किसी पार्ट का कोई जो वर्ड है या कोई जो उसमें बात बोली गई है, वो उसके उसी पोएम के दूसरे सेक्शन में भी हमें देखने को मिलती है. Okay, by these standards, the Wasteland is a cohesive work of poetic art in spite of being divided into 5 parts or sections. It is difficult to question the totality of artistic effects achieved by Eliot in this poem through a fusion of form and meaning. The 5 parts are interwoven and linked together through cross references and echoes of one or several occurring in the others. Through recurrence of images, figures, rhythms, and lines, there are constant reminders that what we are reading is basically one long poem and not a disjointed group of five. The desolation and sterility of the first two parts is transformed by the purifying elements of fire and water in the middle parts to achieve the spiritual peace of the Buddha in the concluding section. That is the artistically unified pattern that emerges at the end of the wasteland and points to the possibility of attaining peace and tranquility in the midst of the confusion and bewilderment of modern times. Now we are doing the poet's vision. अब इसमें हम ना पोइट के विजन की बात करेंगे, ठीक है. Eliot's Wasteland is the European scene immediately after the end of the First World War. He is dismayed by the emotional and spiritual sterility surrounding him everywhere in Europe. Consequently, his poem presents a horrifying vision of the modern world. It is linked to the popular myth of the Fisher King who became impotent through sickness and whose land was devastated by barrenness. The location of the wasteland is a place where the people surprisingly pray for winter but not for spring, since all normal values are topsy-turvy in that land. The tarot pack of cards, once used for professing important events, is reduced in the hands of Madame Sosostris, the famous clairvoyant, into an instrument of ordinary fortune telling. It is significant that she is not able to find in her pack the card of the hanged man, representing some hanged god or even Christ on the cross, a symbol of redemption, life, and fertility. This is another symbolic indication of the arid desert into which the green earth is transformed into the poet's vision. Another picture of corruption is seen in the second part of the poem, A Game of Chess. Shakespeare's Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, amidst her affluence and wealth, once again depicts the lot of the modern man of the 20th century. The grand works of classical art no longer sustain him in his search ideal attainments. The rape of Philomel's virginity, the metaphorically repeated in Eliot's Wasteland, a perverse act which is the result of a combination of man's scientific temper with his spiritual dryness. In the Fire Sermon, the third part of the Wasteland, we encounter Tiresias, the blind visionary, who pronounces his judgment upon the existing relationship between modern man and the woman. According to him, this very significant and vital natural relationship is reduced to a meaningless physical ritual. Even Cleopatra, that great romantic figure of ancient history, is degenerated into a psychiatric patient who needs counsel and help. What Tiresias and all other characters in Eliot's poem see is the poet's vision of the futility of human behavior in a social context. The only positive picture is that of the hyacinth girl, but The flowers she carries are doomed to decay in the fog and rain. This part of the poem ends with the reference to quotations from the teachings of two visionaries, the Buddha of the East and Saint Augustine, a Christian saint of the West, and they are commenting on the physical aspect of love between man and woman. Both religious philosophers significantly use the imagery of fire to convey their impression of lust. On this point, the wisdom of the East and West somehow arrives at the same conclusion. Now, death by water, the fourth part we are talking about. इसमें ना the poet's vision में हमने सारे जितने भी पार्ट्स हैं उनके बारे में पढ़ा है कि विजन क्या था. तो इसमें डेथ बाय वाटर जो है फोर्थ पार्ट है. द फोर्थ पार्ट ऑफ द वेस्टलैंड contains some pictures of death by drowning and comments on the decay of youth into old age. The world is a whirlpool that draws high and low, rich and poor, Christian and Jew, into its destructive vortex, as there is no permanence of human endeavor. The fifth and the last part of the poem, What the Thunder Said, begins the journey over the desert to the perilous castle, which is connected with the legendary quest. Quest means search for the Holy Grail. The vision of a land without water again presents a view of dryness and sterility. However, one is encouraged by the sight of Christ walking with a hood over his head after his resurrection, rising from the grave. The search is complete with the Christian knight's arrival at his destination, for example, perilous castle. At long last, water comes in the form of falling rain and provides a refreshing vision of freedom and flowering of the soul. The voice of Prajapati Brahma in the Upanishad follows in the form of thunder. Datta Dayadhavam Damyatta, give, sympathize and control. Data मतलब give. Dayadhvam means दयाधर्म होगा शायद, sympathize, and damyata means control. To sympathize is a kind of giving of oneself, है ना. जब हम किसी को sympathy करते हैं ना किसी के साथ, तो kind of giving of oneself. And to control is to discipline and govern. This concluding message is given for saving humanity from its spiritual drought. The poem ends on the note of peace. Shanti, Shanti and Shanti. Okay, now we are doing check your progress 3. Write a short note on the unified pattern of the wasteland. Okay, the unified pattern of wasteland becomes evident when we regard it as a single long poem of several movements, 5 in all, comparable to that of a musical composition or a play of 5 acts. Okay, now different points of view in the poem हम next video में करेंगे. और इसमें विजन ऑफ टायरेसियस एंड अदर कैरेक्टर इन इलियट्स पोएम के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. ये हमने ऑलरेडी कर लिया है, ठीक है. तो नेक्स्ट वीडियो में वी आर गोइंग टू डू डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स ऑफ व्यू इन द पोएम. फिर हमारा ये 4th पार्ट होगा. अभी हमने 3rd पार्ट कंप्लीट कर लिया है. थैंक यू सो मच. प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल एंड शेयर माई वीडियो. थैंक यू.